the great DnD was shattered. Oh, rise now, ye third-party publishers, ye dead who yet live. Paizo, the Pathfinder, the ever-brilliant Kobold Press, Green Ronin, the D&D Companion, and Sir Matt Colville, the all-knowing.
It is truly incredible how Wizards of the Coast has destroyed the hegemony of Dungeons and Dragons in a week or so. It's truly incredible. Hi, my name is Fondu. I run this channel called Dice and Easy, where I give you Foundry VTT tips and tricks, talk about D&D and the tabletop RPG industry, and give you daily tabletop RPG memes. So if that's something you're interested in, hit the subscribe button down there. But I'm going to talk about the current situation with D&D and OGL 1.1. So let's get started on what the heck has been going on. Now, as many of you know, 1D&D is the next edition of Dungeons & Dragons that is being developed currently by Wizards of the Coast, or WotC, as some people have so funnily named them. And in December last year, they mentioned that they're going to be updating the Open Gaming License, which is the license that essentially has allowed for 20 plus years for people to make third-party content for D&D and sell it openly, and has contributed greatly to the popularity of D&D. Now, they did not publish a draft of the new OGL, but they mentioned some key changes coming to it in their blog post. But since then, about a week or so ago, Linda Codega of IO9, which is part of Gizmodo, published an article with a leak of a draft of OGL 1.1, and it has got the tabletop RPG community in a furor. Let me do a quick summary of what OGL 1.1 is trying to do. This is an update on OGL 1.0a, which is the current version of the Open Gaming License, and it would essentially be the update that would allow people to create third-party content for 1D&D going forward. Now, it's important to note that the OGL 1.0, as I mentioned, has been in effect for over 20 years. And now the changes are roughly as follows. If you are making any third-party content for D&D, you would have to report that to Wizards of the Coast. What you're making, how much it's going to cost, where you're going to sell it, what's it called, etc. What is the mechanism for you to do that? We don't know that. Again, this is a leak, so it's not an official publication from Wizards, but this is what is in it. And if you are making over $750,000 US revenue annually from your third-party content that you are selling, then you will have to give Wizards of the Coast 25% of your revenue, gross revenue that is, for the part that goes over the $750,000. Now, this is a pretty big thing. There hasn't been no royalties previously, and now they have added this. Also, Wizards of the Coast has the rights to all your work forever and doesn't have to pay you anything for using them. Not very cool. And the big thing here is that these terms can be changed with a 30-day notice. So that $750,000 limit that I mentioned earlier, Wizards could at some point just send you an email saying, hey, the terms have changed. Now it's $100,000. And you would have 1 month to decide if you still want to sell your products or pull them off all the storefronts. Very, very fun. So this is what happened about a week and a half ago when Linda Codega and IO9 broke this news story. And the industry, the community, the players, the DMs have been in an uproar. Understandably so, because these changes are just brazen and overstepping so much. And as I mentioned in the silly little intro that I did, the hegemony of D&D has been seemingly broken by this. Not by an outside force, but by Wizards themselves for being so greedy. And you might be asking, like, why is Wizards doing this? Well, it's because Wizards of the Coast is owned by the toy company Hasbro, and Hasbro wants to push Wizards to make more money. They want Wizards to be pushing more profits. And one way to make more profits is to tap into that third-party publishing and start getting money from there. So that's definitely the reason that they're doing this. It's not the creatives within Wizards who are making the game who think we should definitely do this. No, it's the suits at the top level of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast who are saying we need to make more money out of the people that are playing our games, even though they are the de facto hegemony tabletop RPG game. So they're greedy. And the consequences of this have been very, very interesting on the industry. So a lot of people online on Twitter have been saying they're going to be trying out different systems like Pathfinder, for example, and switching over to other games, which is a huge deal because that's kind of been the problem within the tabletop RPG community, is that it's difficult to get people to play anything but D&D, and this is pushing people to play other things than D&D. But on top of that, in a very interesting way, Kobold Press has announced their own tabletop RPG system called Project Black Flag. They're saying that this is going to be their own system. It's going to have an open license that people can use to make third-party content to. And also MCDM, Matt Colville's studio, has announced their own tabletop role-playing game system, which will also have an open system like this for third-party content. And then Paizo, who make Pathfinder, have announced that they are releasing their own open role-playing game license, or ORC for short, which is a fantastic acronym, by the way. And here's what ORC will be. It'll be similar to OGL 1.0, where you can create content and publish it out and you don't need to pay royalties or anything like that. And it's going to be perpetual and irrevocable, which means that perpetual meaning that it's going to go on forever, and irrevocable meaning that Paizo or any other company in the future cannot come and say this license is no longer valid, which is the problem with OGL 1.0. It's perpetual, meaning that there's no end date to it, but it is not irrevocable. So Wizards can say that OGL 1.0 no longer in effect. Now it's OGL 1.1. That's kind of been the problem. So this fixes that on this side of things. Then this license is system agnostic, which means that other companies can join this license if they want to, and they can put their games under this. And this license will not be owned by Paizo, but it's going to be owned by a separate company called Azora Law. So it's going to be handled by a law firm. So whatever happens to Paizo or who owns them, it won't matter because this license will not be under Paizo. It's going to be under a different company, which is fantastic. It's going to be completely separate from Paizo's happenings. And there's already a bunch of third-party publishers that are on board with this license, including Kobold Press, Chaosium, Green Ronin, Legendary Games, Rogue Genius Games, and Battlezoo, with hopefully more following in the future. So this is a great push to have a universally adopted open gaming license, of course, minus D&D, but this is a fantastic initiative. And it's amazing that this is happening because what Wizards did themselves. They didn't have to do this. If Wizards hadn't have done this, where would we be now? It's really hard to say. And another consequence has been that people have been unsubscribing from D&D Beyond, which is an important tool of revenue for Wizards of the Coast, because those subscriptions to D&D Beyond, Wizards gets to keep all of the money since they own D&D Beyond now. So that's an important revenue tool for them, and people have been canceling their subs. That's going to be a huge dip in their revenue, so they feel that. And it's funny to be in this situation because Pathfinder was born when 3.5, D&D 3.5 was out. And Wizards was working on D&D 4th edition. And they actually did very similar things where they said that, you know, we're not gonna get rid of the OGL, don't worry, we're just making a few changes, it's not gonna be a huge deal. And then they published the gaming license for 4th edition, and it was very restrictive. It was not open, it's very restrictive, trying to make money and take the rights and restrict third-party content creators, and there was a huge backlash. And in part because of that, and also other dealings with 4th edition, Paizo decided to basically take 3.5 and build off of it, and that became Pathfinder. And Paizo is a huge company now, and Pathfinder is one of the biggest competitors of D&D with Pathfinder 2 and Starfinder and other games that they're working on. So will this be a birth of a new Pathfinder or several new Pathfinders? Like I said, Kobold Press is working on the Project Black Flag, MCDM, Matt Colville's studio is working on their own game system, and who knows how many new game systems are going to come out of this. Of course, many of them will not succeed, it's just the nature of things, but will we see a new Pathfinder? Will we see more people trying out new games and D&D losing popularity and people actually spreading to more games. It's very interesting. This is a watershed moment in the industry, I think. And what's ridiculous in the situation to me is that Wizards didn't need to do this. Like, I can understand that Wizards saying like, hey, you're building off of our IP and our games, so you should give us some royalties after a certain threshold, whatever that threshold is. Now it's 750K. Fair. I think that's a fair ask. I don't think that's too impossible of an ask. Should that percentage be 25%? No, I think that's way too much. What that number should be could be argued. What the limit of when you should start paying royalties could be argued, but I think that's not an impossible ask. But they just went so overboard with this, saying, we own the rights to all of your work forever and we can use it whenever we want. We don't have to pay you anything. You can only make PDFs and books, nothing else under this license. You have to report all your work to us. We can change these terms whenever we want. Just so much bad stuff in there. Just such a huge overstep that they did not need to do. It could have been a few small changes here and there, and I think the community would have taken it in a way better manner. But no, they had to get greedy. They had to try to squeeze every dollar out of every single avenue, and now we're here. Now we're here in this situation where they've angered everyone. And they've responded. Today is Friday when I'm recording this, and the response, I mean, it's pretty lackluster corporate. We made a mistake. We're sorry. We didn't want to hurt you. Blah, blah, blah. We value you. And there's some weird stuff in there that don't make sense to me. Like them saying like, oh, we didn't understand that this part where we say we own your stuff forever, you could see us as stealing your work, which is like, how could you not have thought of that? And I'm not going to go through the details of what they posted, because it kind of doesn't matter at this point, because they didn't post a new draft of the OGL. So until they post a new draft of the OGL, anything that they say in their posts, I'm not going to trust. Because until there's a new draft that we can see, then we can verify if what they're actually saying is actually going to be in there. So I'm waiting and seeing until a OGL 1.2 or whatever they want to call it draft is going to come out, and we can actually see if what they're saying in their blog post from today, which I'll link below, is going to be there and is actually true. Before that, we don't know. They could just be, blowing smoke up our butts, and we wouldn't know about it. But what do you think about this whole OGL 1.1 situation? How do you feel about Wizards of the Coast and D&D in general? Are you going to be trying new game systems and switching to other games as a result? I think whether or not you want to switch to other games because of this, I think you should try other games, because there's a lot of other cool tabletop RPGs out there, and you should definitely give those a try. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what are your feelings and thoughts on this, because this has been quite the week and a half in the tabletop RPG industry. And if you've enjoyed this video of my thoughts on the industry, hit that like and subscribe button down there while you're commenting on what you think about this. And also, I stream every Monday and Wednesday on twitch.tv/diceandeasy. That is twitch.tv/diceandeasy at 6 p.m. Eastern European Standard Time. Come there, hang out with me. I talk about tabletop RPGs, the industry, news, etc. And I also play some video games. I'm currently playing through Sonic 06. Great game, that. And hey, thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.